A red Mustang tore past me, engine screaming, and seconds later I saw a woman sprinting down the street, desperate, waving her arms like her whole world was behind that car. I pulled over and rolled down the window. She leaned in, breathless, and whispered, "My son just stole it." I'm Jack Reynolds, 38, single dad. I was turning into our neighborhood in my black 2018 Chevy Tahoe with my son, Ethan, riding shotgun. A red 2018 Ford Mustang blew past us from the opposite lane, too fast for a residential street. Engine screaming, driver slumped low like he didn't want to be seen. I tapped the brakes and checked my mirrors. No police, no second car, just the Mustang cutting a blind corner and disappearing. 15 seconds later, a woman ran into view, full sprint, waving both arms. She almost stepped into my lane. I pulled to the curb and put on the hazards. She bent to the window, breathing hard. "Please, did you see a red Mustang?" "Just past me," I said, heading south toward the main road. "That's my car. My son took it." I tried to stop him. Her voice was flat from adrenaline, not dramatic. She looked mid-30s, hair pulled back, no bag, no phone in her hand, like she dropped everything and chased. "What's his name?" I asked. "Ryan. 16. I nodded. "I'm Jack. This is my boy, Ethan." Ethan lifted a hand. She managed a quick thanks and stayed focused. "Any reason he'd push it that hard?" I said. "Is he hurt? Angry? Running to someone?" "He's not hurt," she said. "He's angry. School called today. They want to hold him back. Since his dad died, I can't get through to him. He grabbed the keys and left." "Got it," I said. "Do you have your phone?" She tapped her pocket. "Yes." "Good. We're not chasing at high speed," I said, "but we can head the same direction and call it in. If he turns onto the highway, he's a danger to himself and everyone else." She nodded. "I'm Claire." "Okay, Claire." I looked at Ethan. "You know the drill. Go home. Lock up. If I'm not back in 30, call me and Uncle Mike." Ethan unbuckled, calm. We'd practiced this after a break-in on our block last year. He jogged to our street and looked back once. I gave him a thumbs up. I unlocked the passenger door. "Get in." Claire slid into the Tahoe, still catching her breath, eyes on the road where the Mustang vanished. "Seatbelt," I said. "We keep this clean and smart." She clicked it. "Thank you." I pulled away, steady speed, no hero moves. "While we roll, call 911. Give them the plate if you have it. I'll keep us within limits and watch for fresh tire noise or sudden turns." She opened her contacts. "I have the plate." Her hands shook, but her voice was clear. "I'll tell them exactly where we are." "Good," I said. "We'll do this the right way." Claire had the phone to her ear while I steered the Tahoe down the main road. The Mustang was long gone, but I kept my eyes moving, checking side streets, intersections, and gas stations. If Ryan had any sense, he'd duck somewhere close before patrol cars flooded the area. "Yes, red Mustang. Plate number 8XJH217, Claire said into the phone. "My son took it, 16 years old. We're on Brookline heading south. I'm in another vehicle following the same direction." She gave my name and truck description when the dispatcher asked. Her voice steadied the longer she spoke. When she hung up, she turned to me. "They're sending units this way. They said to keep eyes open, but not engage him if we spot him." "Smart," I said. "They'll box him in safer than we can." She pressed her palms against her knees. I didn't know what else to do. I just ran. That was enough. "You flagged the right car." I kept my hands relaxed on the wheel. "We'll let the uniforms handle it. Our job's making sure you stay with the process." Claire glanced at me. "Why are you even helping? You don't know me." "You were running after a Mustang on foot," I said. That told me enough. No parent does that unless it's serious. I've got a son myself. I know how it feels when control slips. She nodded, biting her lip. "Since my husband passed, Ryan listens less every month. Teachers say he's not focused, grades are falling, and now they want to hold him back a year. I push, he pushes harder. Today it just broke." I let that sit a moment. Lost twist kids. Doesn't matter if it's death, divorce, or something else. They test limits when they feel the floor drop. My boy was 2 when his mom walked out. He doesn't remember her, but he carries it anyway. Claire looked over, surprised. "You raised him alone?" "Still raising him," I said. "It's not pretty, but we manage. Point is, you're not alone in this." She stared forward, silent, as the Tahoe's engine hummed steady. Ahead, traffic slowed near a light. I scanned left and right for the red Mustang, but saw nothing. Then my phone buzzed on the console. Unknown number. I hit speaker. Mr. Reynolds? This is Officer Perez. We got the dispatch from Ms. Morgan. Units spotted a vehicle matching the description 3 miles out near County Road 12. Driver was weaving, then lost control. Car's in a ditch. EMS is on scene. From first report, no major injuries. Claire gasped and grabbed the dashboard. Is he alive? Yes, ma'am, the officer said. He's out of the car and talking. We need you to head to St. Mary's Hospital for evaluation. Tow and report will follow. I glanced at Claire. She was shaking but nodded quickly. We'll be there, I told the officer. The call ended. I changed lanes and accelerated. Claire pressed her hands to her face, whispering, "Thank God." Now we focus, I said. He's alive. That's the part that matters. The rest we'll deal with step by step. The Tahoe ate up the miles towards St. Mary's. I kept a steady pace, not rushing. We weren't chasing anymore. Claire sat angled toward the passenger window, silent at first, arms crossed tight. After a few minutes, she exhaled hard, like her body finally realized the danger had passed. You don't know how many nights I've been waiting for that call, she said. The one saying something bad happened. Tonight it almost came true. 16 with a car is a loaded weapon, I said, even when they're responsible, which most aren't. She nodded, staring at her lap. Ryan used to be different. Before his dad got sick, he was calm, easygoing. After the funeral, it was like he flipped a switch. He ignores me, skips assignments, mouths off to teachers. I can't ground him anymore. He just walks out. They told me today he'll have to repeat the year. I told him we'd get through it, but he heard it as me calling him a failure. Next thing I knew, keys were gone and tires squealed. Her words weren't dressed up, just plain facts, the way stress strips everything down. Did his dad leave him anything solid? I asked. Just the Mustang, she said, voice breaking a little. That car was supposed to stay in the garage until Ryan was ready, maybe college. His dad loved it. Ryan said driving it keeps him close to him. I said no. He didn't hear anything else. I kept my eyes on the road, hands steady. Grief makes kids chase symbols, but symbols can kill them if no one pulls the reins. She turned toward me. And what about you? You said you've been through something similar. My ex left when Ethan was 2, I said. No warning. Just a note on the counter and her clothes gone. I spent the first year working double shifts and changing diapers. Built my company because I had no choice. No one's coming to save us. That lesson never leaves. Claire studied me for a second, maybe measuring if I was the kind of man who threw pity around. I wasn't. I thought losing my husband was hard enough, she said quietly. Now I feel like I'm losing my son too. You're not, I said. You showed up tonight. You ran down a street after a Mustang. That's a mother who hasn't given up. Her grip on her arms loosened. She sat straighter. The hospital sign appeared a mile ahead, blue lights glowing in the night. Whatever happens when we walk in there, I said, you'll deal with it. And Ryan will know you didn't leave him to burn. She nodded once, sharp, like she needed that reminder. We pulled off the exit, the hospital lights guiding us in. The hospital parking lot came into view, but before we turned in, flashing red and blue caught my eye 2 blocks down. A cruiser was parked sideways, blocking traffic while another directed cars around. I slowed, rolled the window down. An officer stepped up, flashlight raised, then lowered it when he saw Claire in the passenger seat. You here for the Mustang? Claire leaned across me. Yes. My son, Ryan Morgan. Is he all right? He's fine, ma'am. Little shaken, no visible injuries. EMS cleared him for transport. They're bringing him here for evaluation anyway. The officer's tone was calm, businesslike. Car's a total loss, though. He left the road doing 50 and slid into a drainage ditch. Lucky it wasn't a tree. Claire closed her eyes, whispering something I didn't catch. I asked, was he alone? Yes. No alcohol. No substances, at least from first checks. Just speed and bad judgment. Typical teenage cocktail. Claire pressed her hands together. Can I see him? Inside, the officer said, pointing at the ER entrance. He'll be checked and released to you. Paperwork later. We'll need your statement and his. Understood, I said. The officer tapped the Tahoe and waved us through. I eased forward and parked near the emergency entrance. Claire unbuckled fast, but I caught her wrist before she jumped out. Take a breath first, I said. He's alive. Go in clear-headed, not shaking. She froze, then nodded slowly, forcing herself to inhale deep and let it out. You're right. Thank you. We walked inside together. The air was sharp with disinfectant, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. A nurse guided us to a small waiting area near the exam rooms. Claire sat down stiff, hands clasped tight. I stayed standing, leaning against the wall, scanning the corridor. 10 minutes later, Ryan walked out with a paramedic at his side. Jeans dirty, t-shirt ripped at the shoulder, hair sticking up like he'd been through a wind tunnel. But he was walking. Claire jumped to her feet. Ryan. He looked away at first, jaw tight, then muttered, I'm fine. She hugged him anyway. He let her, arms hanging limp, face somewhere between guilt and defiance. The paramedic said, vitals are stable. No concussion signs. He can go home tonight. Just needs rest. Claire whispered thanks. She held her son like she wasn't ready to let go, and I stood there, watching a mother wrestle between relief and fury. The crisis was over. Now came the part that really mattered, what she did with him once the dust settled. And from the look on Ryan's face, he wasn't ready to make it easy. Ryan sat stiff in the chair across from us, arms crossed, eyes locked on the floor. Claire stayed beside him, her hand on his shoulder, as if keeping contact would hold him in place. I stood near the doorway, watching, letting the silence settle before anyone spoke. Finally, Claire broke it. Do you understand what could have happened tonight? Ryan didn't answer. His jaw shifted once, but no words. I stepped in. The officers said you slid off at 50. If there'd been a tree, we wouldn't be talking right now. His eyes flicked up, quick and sharp. I said I'm fine. Yeah, I said. You're fine. The car's not. Your mom's not. She ran after you down the street, like a cop on foot chase. You think that's nothing? Claire looked at me, torn between gratitude and fear I'd pushed too hard. I kept my tone level. Look, I get it. 16 feels like no one listens. You wanted control for once. But you put yourself in a ditch, and you dragged your mom with you. Ryan's lips pressed together. His hands shook a little against his arms, but he kept them crossed. A nurse stepped in with discharge papers. He's cleared. Just bruising. You can take him home. She handed the clipboard to Claire. Claire signed quickly, her hand steady only because she forced it to be. Thank you, she told the nurse. When the nurse left, Claire looked at her son again. We'll talk more at home. For now, just know, you scared me more than I've ever been scared in my life. Ryan shifted, finally muttering, sorry. It wasn't much, but it was something. I put a hand on Claire's shoulder. I'll walk you both out. Make sure you get settled. Outside, the Tahoe waited. Claire guided Ryan to the passenger side like he was younger than 16. He let her, no fight left in him for the night. As I opened the driver's door, I thought about Ethan waiting at home, about how thin the line was between steady ground and losing control. Tonight had ended better than it could have. But from the look on Ryan's face, the real work was just starting. We sat in the hospital waiting area while the staff processed the paperwork. Ryan leaned back in the chair with his hood pulled up, trying to disappear. Claire sat on his left, posture rigid, hands clasped together so tightly her knuckles were white. I stayed on her right, close enough to steady things if they turned, far enough not to intrude. After 10 minutes of silence, Claire finally spoke, her voice low. Thank you for staying. You didn't have to. I shrugged. Doesn't matter. Once you step into something like this, you see it through. She glanced sideways at me. Most people would have kept driving. Pretended they didn't see. Most people aren't raising kids alone, I said. I know what it's like when everything falls on your shoulders. You don't get to tap out. Her eyes softened, but she quickly looked back at Ryan. He didn't react, just kept his hood shadowing his face. A nurse came over, clipboard in hand. He's officially cleared. No head trauma, no broken bones. Just superficial bruises and muscle strain. He needs rest and fluids. You're free to go when you're ready. Claire signed the last page, handed it back, and gave a small nod. The nurse walked off. Ryan shifted in his chair, voice barely audible. Can we go now? Soon, Claire said. First, I need to use the restroom. She stood, turned to me. Can you sit with him? Just for a minute. Of course. She left, and the automatic door clicked behind her. Ryan pulled his hood lower, avoiding eye contact. I stayed quiet at first, letting the silence stretch. The kid expected a lecture, maybe a threat. That's not what he got. You know she thought you were dead tonight, I said finally. His head turned a fraction, enough to show he was listening. She told me about your dad. Losing him tore her up. Now you're all she's got left. When she saw that Mustang vanish, she chased it on foot. That's not about control. That's about fear of losing the last piece of her family. Ryan swallowed, jaw tight. She doesn't get it. She treats me like I'm still 12. No, she treats you like a son she wants alive, I said. Difference is, she doesn't know how to say it in a way you'll hear. His hands twisted the strings of his hoodie, nervous energy bleeding out. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I just needed space. You took space at 50 miles an hour, I said, voice firm but even. You can take space without putting her through hell. That's the choice you've got going forward. Ryan didn't answer, but his shoulders dropped. The fight was leaving him. The restroom door opened. Claire walked back, relief flashing across her face when she saw both of us still sitting there. Ready? She asked. Ryan nodded once, quiet. I stood. Let's get you home. The drive from the hospital was quiet. Claire sat in the back with Ryan, her hand resting on his knee like she was afraid he'd vanish if she let go. He didn't pull away this time, just stared out the window, face pale in the glow of passing streetlights. When we reached their house, I pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. Claire opened the back door. Come on, Ryan. Inside. Bed. He climbed out slowly, dragging his feet toward the porch. Claire turned to me. Would you mind coming in for a minute? Sure. Inside, the house was modest but neat. Photos on the wall, most with a man I assumed was her late husband. Ryan dropped onto the couch, arms folded again, a wall already going back up. Claire hovered, unsure whether to press him or give him space. I looked at her. Why don't you get some water, maybe breathe for a second? I'll sit with him. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay. She stepped into the kitchen, leaving me and Ryan in the living room. I sat across from him, elbows on my knees. You think tonight was just about a car? Ryan's eyes flicked up, then back down. It's my dad's. He promised it to me. She wants to keep it locked away like a museum piece. Your dad isn't here to argue his side, I said evenly. That leaves your mom carrying both loads, his and hers. You think she's holding you back. She thinks she's keeping you alive. Neither of you is wrong, but the ditch proves one of you has the stronger case. Ryan's jaw worked. I didn't mean. I know, I cut in. But intent doesn't erase the wreck. Listen, I've got a son, Ethan. He's 12. His mom walked out on us when he was 2. That boy's all I've got. If he ever put himself in the ground over a stunt like this, I wouldn't survive it. That's what your mom felt tonight. Ryan shifted uncomfortably, picking at a loose thread on his sleeve. You want freedom? Earn it. Show her you can handle school, work, respect. Then argue for the keys. But running from her grief won't bring your dad back. It'll just bury her sooner. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. She doesn't say stuff like that. She doesn't have to, I said. You saw it in her face at the hospital. Ryan finally looked me in the eye. The defiance wasn't gone, but it cracked. Claire returned with 2 glasses of water, eyes darting between us. Everything all right? Yeah, I said. We're good. Ryan nodded slightly, just enough for her to see. It wasn't a full breakthrough, but it was the start of one. The following weekend, I called Claire. Her voice carried hesitation at first, but when I suggested she and Ryan come by for dinner, she agreed. I wanted Ethan to meet them. Sometimes kids hear better from another kid than from any adult. By 6 o'clock, the Tahoe was parked in the driveway with Ethan tossing a football around the yard. When Claire's sedan pulled up, Ryan stepped out slow, hands jammed in his hoodie pocket. Claire gave me a small nod, the kind that said she wasn't sure how this would go. Ryan, I said, this is my son, Ethan. Ethan tossed the ball underhand. You play? Ryan caught it on reflex, surprised. A little. Good, Ethan said. You're on my team then. Without waiting, he jogged back, motioning for Ryan to throw. Within 2 passes, Ryan's shoulders eased. The wall that had been welded shut since the hospital started to crack open. Inside, Claire and I worked in the kitchen while the boys played outside. She glanced at me. You didn't have to do this. Sure I did, I said. They need to see other families working. It's proof normal still exists. She exhaled, tension leaving her shoulders. Ryan hasn't smiled in months. Not until just now. Ethan's good at breaking ice, I said. Mostly because he doesn't care if it cracks or not. We carried plates to the porch. Burgers, chips, soda. The boys sat down sweaty and laughing like they'd known each other longer than an hour. For the first time, Claire looked less like a woman on guard and more like a mom allowed to breathe. During dinner, Ryan even told a story, nothing heavy, just about a teacher who couldn't handle the smart mouth kids in his class. Ethan piled on with his own version, and the table filled with actual laughter instead of strained silence. Later, when the plates were cleared and the boys were inside with a video game, Claire stayed out on the porch with me. "Thank you," she said simply. "No thanks needed. This is how it works. You stand next to people until they realize they're not alone." She studied me for a moment, then looked toward the living room window where Ryan was sitting with Ethan, heads bent close, controllers in hand. The sight said more than words ever could. For the first time since I'd met them, I believed this family might actually find its balance again. And maybe mine too. Over the next few weeks, dinners became routine. Sometimes at my house, sometimes at Claire's. The boys got along easily, switching between football in the yard and video games inside. The laughter that had been rare in both homes started to sound normal again. One night, after the kids disappeared to Ethan's room, Claire and I stayed at the table with coffee. She traced the rim of her mug before speaking. "I haven't told many people this, but I feel like I'm failing Ryan. Every time I push, he pushes harder. Tonight, I watched him laugh with your son like nothing's wrong. Why can't I reach him like that?" "You're too close," I said. When Ethan was little and his mom left, I thought I had to fill both roles. Father, mother, provider. All of it. Every mistake felt like proof I wasn't enough. Took me years to figure out that being steady was what mattered, not being perfect. She looked at me, eyes steady. "So that's how you did it. Built a business, raised him alone, held it all together." "How?" "Because there wasn't a choice," I said plainly. My ex walked out when Ethan was 2. I came home to an empty closet and a note. I could have folded, but a toddler doesn't wait for excuses. I worked days on job sites, nights on paperwork. Started my own construction company because nobody else was going to carry us. It wasn't strength, it was survival. But survival builds muscle you don't realize you have. Claire's expression softened, but there was no pity in it, just recognition. I thought losing a husband made me the only one carrying more than I could handle. But you've been doing the same in a different way. Different details, same weight, I said. You carry it long enough. It either breaks you or you get harder. Ryan sees your struggle. He doesn't know how to name it, so he pushes against it. That doesn't mean he doesn't care. She nodded slowly, absorbing it. When I chased that car, I thought it was just fear. But maybe it was also anger, at myself, at him, at everything I couldn't fix. That's human, I said. But tonight he heard you. He won't admit it yet, but he will. The sound of laughter came from Ethan's room. Claire smiled faintly at the noise, a mother's instinctive relief. For the first time, the weight on her shoulders seemed lighter. And for the first time, I felt like my years of carrying my own load meant something more than survival. They gave me a way to steady someone else. Spring warmed the evenings, and I set up the grill in the backyard. Ethan tossed a football with Ryan while Claire brought out a bowl of salad. The simple scene had a rhythm to it, one that felt earned rather than borrowed. "Plates are on the table," I said, laying burgers onto the grill. Claire brushed her hands on a towel. "Hard to believe this started with me chasing a car down the street. Hard to believe your son's still standing after putting a Mustang into a ditch," I said. She gave a short laugh, the kind that came from relief more than humor. Ryan threw the ball back to Ethan, both boys shouting and laughing without a care. Later, when food was gone and the kids disappeared into the house, Claire stayed outside with me. The night was quiet except for crickets and the faint hum of a neighbor's mower. "You've done more for Ryan in weeks than I managed in years," she said. "No," I corrected. "You've been fighting for him since day one. I just showed up at the right moment." She shook her head. "Still, you didn't have to stay that night. Or the next. Or any of this." I took a sip of water, kept my voice even. When Ethan's mom left, I swore I'd raise him without excuses. That meant building a business from scratch, keeping food on the table, making sure he never felt abandoned. It was hard, but it kept me straight. Seeing you and Ryan. It reminded me that no one makes it alone forever. Claire looked at me, steady this time. "Maybe we don't have to." We sat in silence, not forced, not uncomfortable. Just two parents who had carried too much alone, realizing they didn't have to anymore. Inside, the boys' laughter carried down the hallway, a sound that belonged in a home. I flipped the last of the coals in the grill, certain of one thing. Life had shifted. Not through grand speeches or sudden miracles, but through steady steps. A Mustang in a ditch, a mother who refused to quit, a man who knew the cost of standing alone. Now, piece by piece, we were building something new.